Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Carly Stevens, and this is Carly Stevens Books for all things writing, publishing, and indie author life. And I have the distinct pleasure today to talk about what writers get wrong about arson and fire rescue with Ken Shoemaker. So, welcome to the channel.
Hey, Carly, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
So, can you tell us a little bit about your background and what qualifies you to talk about this particular subject?
I'm a retired fire captain from Central Illinois. I worked in the profession for 30 years, and I have all my certifications as far as fire rescue and arson.
Yeah, I mean that's that's definitely enough for me. So books and TV are constantly talking about these topics. It seems like a lot of different genres deal with both arson and fire rescue, and I know that there are some misconceptions out there about all of that kind of thing. So, what are some of the most common misconceptions that you see in books and TV about fire?
Basically, it's procedures and um, some of the TV shows, well, pick on, was it Station 19? They go into fires without a fire hose.
So you would always like if you were ever to breach the entrance of a burning structure, you'd always have a fire hose with you?
Yes, and a lot of times, even as search teams don't usually, but we will take a hose as a search team, but they don't. They won't use it. It's more of a safety net than anything.
Hmm. I mean, that makes sense. You'd need something to be able to put out the fire as you're going toward it.
It's a coordinated attack between ventilation and the host team going in, and then search and rescue teams go in.
Yeah, so a misconception that I've heard of anyway, and I would like to see if I got correct information. Google can be hit or miss. Is that you can't actually start a fire if you like flick a cigarette on gasoline. Is that possible, or is it just like not hot enough?
It is possible. You can drop
It
because the
is.
fumes are what ignite. You can drop a lit cigarette into a pool of gas, and it will put out the cigarette.
So it will put out the cigarette, it will not ignite.
Yes, that's
Okay. Okay, so my information was good.
yeah.
That's something that you see all the time in TV shows. It seems like when somebody's trying to casually, commit arson.
We had a gentleman that tried to set his mobile home on fire, and he boarded all the windows up and boarded it up so tight he did not have any oxygen. Then when he went to light the fire, it wouldn't light because he didn't have any oxygen to set the fire.
Wow, how did he like stand being in there? That's wild.
Now, because we figured he used at least 5 gallons, if not more, gas. He poured at least 5 gallons of gas on the floor, and luckily he didn't have enough oxygen for it to burn.
That that is shocking. I would think in a smaller containment, than that could be the case, but I would expect an entire mobile home to have plenty of oxygen everywhere, even if you
Well,
did board
usually
up
they
the.
do, but we lived in one for a while when I was on fire department in Bloomington, and it was drafty, and they're not very solidly built. So.
Yeah, so something that intrigues me about arson investigations that I've heard about or watched is how can you actually tell that a fire is arson rather than something natural? It seems like we're surrounded by all kinds of accelerants just on a normal day-to-day basis without any ill intent. So, what are some ways that you as an investigator would parse that out?
Well, we eliminate like wiring and cooking appliances, accidental, like a candle setting the drapes on fire. And then we look at location is big,
The location of the.
of the cause of the origin of the fire.
Okay,
So
how can you tell where it originated? If,
we
say a whole structure is burned down, how do you begin to figure out the
burns completely
origin?
down. It's sorry, it is kind of tough sometimes, but we follow. You've seen a piece of wood burn in your log, in a fire that has a lot of alligator charring on it. We start with the least amount of damage and work our way to the damage and see if we can figure out where it is and what it's telling us. The burn pattern, then we follow the burn pattern. We look for V's, a V pattern or a non-V pattern a lot of times, and then we look on the floors and see if we can see pour patterns like from gasoline, but those can be misleading too, because from the late 60s to the late 70s, early 80s, contractors used gasoline in floor varnish to thin the floor varnish to save money.
Oh,
So in fire conditions, it would look like somebody poured gas on the floor. And people
oh, that
actually went to jail for
that is
doing that.
interesting. So it's this false lead. You think somebody poured gasoline on the floor, but it's just part of the flooring itself. Yeah, that
Right.
would make it extra hard.
The only way you can really tell is to go to the lab, and we take samples of the floor itself and take samples of the carpeting, and the gas it'll be in the floor but not in the carpeting.
So I have a couple questions about the things that you said. I want to go back for a second. You mentioned if there are V patterns or non-V patterns. For
Right.
people who have never worked with fire, what does that tell you? Like if you see a burn pattern that looks more like a V versus no
It's
presence
usually a
of that.
good it's usually a good indication of the origin of the fire. Um, which I should have sent you some pictures. I was going to, I forgot.
So I'm going through a burning structure. I see maybe near the floorboards this V pattern. Does that tell you that what does that say about the direction of the fire, the origin? What can I begin to deduce from that?
It's a good if I go into your kitchen and then everything's burnt and charred, or if then I can see from your stove, you'll see a V pattern on the walls and then the cupboards, and that'll tell me that the fire started around your stove.
Oh, okay. Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
And that
And then you also said that you will collect samples of things like the flooring if you're unsure if there was an accelerant poured on it or things like that. Is it similar to police procedure where you would have those evidence bags? Is that sort of how you would you know transport
we
that?
use for those kind of samples, we for like the floors and the carpeting and stuff like that that may contain an accelerant, we use an empty paint can, and seal it, and that'll preserve the fumes and whatever else.
An empty paint can.
Empty paint can.
Interesting. Is it because you want there to be no oxygen in there? Like, yeah, but that
Yeah,
that
basically it'll preserve the fumes and whatever. And then when they take it to the lab, they can open it. And when we get done, I'll send you a bunch of pictures. And I should have did that first, and I thought about it and I forgot.
Yeah, well, we can definitely also tell anybody who's watching where to find legitimate information about these things, answers to questions and all of that. I know that you moderate a Facebook page where people can ask questions and I assume some of the pictures would be on there, correct?
Yes. Authors Fire Rescue.
Okay, yes, I'll definitely put that link down below for anybody who wants to dive deeper into this afterwards. So, um, what kind of training do firefighters and arson investigators and all that go through? Like, what's the process if somebody were to become one of those things? Like, if I wanted to be a firefighter, what sort of steps would there be?
If you would start out as a probationary fire, you go to you get hired and you go to the academy. Or even as a volunteer, you can go to you can train and then specialize. And it's academy is about 14 weeks of intense training. They teach you all the tools and hoses and ladders and actually go into a fire and put it out.
Okay, there's some hands-on aspect to that,
Yeah.
I assume. Can you explain a little bit of what that hands-on training actually entails? Because that's a lot. We often see that again in TV shows and things like that, where people are running through burning buildings or rappelling from a helicopter or doing all these things to prepare for the eventuality that they'll one day need to do this. How much of that is real?
As far as TV, we don't really run into a building, and most of the time we don't, unless you're Coast Guard or a specialized rescue train. We don't go in helicopters. We'll put people in the helicopters and they fly them to the hospital. But
So you don't run into buildings. I mean, I assume that there's the fire rescue aspect of it. Do you, you know, um, do you get into buildings or do you help people to kind of find the exits or um again, what's the process there? Curious minds want to know.
we go into the building. We go into the building, and it's black and hot and dirty and smoky, and visibility is a lot of times there's you can't see your hand in front of your face.
Mm.
And you put on your snowsuit and crawl inside, turn on your broiler on high and crawl inside there with your snowsuit on and give you a pretty good idea.
Oh, wow. And you have those helmets as well, right? So you can breathe. Is it easy to hear through the helmet?
Yeah, it's muffled. We have the helmets and the face masks for our SCBAs, self-contained breathing apparatus, and we have our coats and Nomex hoods, and they're better now than they were 30 years ago when I was active. They have mics built into the face mask. It's a little easier, but it's still kind of muffled.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm just thinking if you're trying to go into a blind, hot, like you described, disorienting, difficult situation, and trying to find someone who might still be alive in there, and trying to cry out or something. I mean, can you hear someone in the next room, or is that really quite difficult? And there's a procedure to sort of make your way through trying to find people.
Yeah, it's sometimes we can, and we call out, and sometimes we can hear them, and then, but when we train, we have certain things that we do and feel around, and now they have what they call a thermal imaging camera that
Hmm.
does help, but it can be misleading because if you're a little kid or so, you laid in your bed, well, your heat's still going to be there, so that's still a little misleading, but to try to compensate.
Okay,
But as
so
far as
kind of
searching,
residual heat signatures would still
yes,
show up.
exactly.
Yeah.
But kids are the toughest to find when we're searching, because they'll hide in your closet, they'll hide in toy boxes, they'll hide under the beds,
Hmm.
and they'll hide in bathrooms around the toilets and in the tubs to escape the heat.
Yeah, that's heartbreaking, but it makes perfect sense, if you don't think you can get outside to go someplace like that where you think you'll be safe. That's
And
tough.
today you have between 3 and 5 minutes to escape a house fire. 25 years ago, you had 15 to 17 minutes to escape out just because of the synthetics and plastics and stuff that they use to make your furniture and build your house today.
Wow, just the building materials make that much of a difference to slow down. That's that's that that's very surprising
That's
and kind
scary
of
too.
kind of terrifying. Yeah, my house actually burned down when I was 8. So that was, whatever, 25 years ago. And nobody was seriously harmed. So yeah, that's stressful to think that now there would be a lot less time to get out. Hmm. So anyway, um,
See,
oh, go ahead.
as far as I think, I don't know if I'm finished talking, you were talking about finding the location and the cause. We start with the least amount of damage and work our way to the most damage. And after we eliminate those, and hopefully that sometimes we find a device, sometimes we don't. And
Hmm. So yeah, kind of to follow up on that, it's the same process if it were like a forest fire. Um,
yeah, I think so.
you go back to the most damaged area, or I guess you could narrow it down further to the part where you know that it started and then continued out, and then within that you would check.
Yes.
Am I on the right track there? Okay, good. I'm talking as if I'm pontificating as if I know these things, but there's a reason I'm talking to you. You're the one who's actually seen a bunch of fire scenes and done some of these investigations yourself. So speaking of investigations, one of the times that arson and all of that comes up in stories a lot is to cover up the evidence of a crime. So in your experience, what kinds of evidence can survive a devastating fire? Like, is it more than people expect, less than people expect?
Yeah, it's fire and what we in putting out the fire and making sure the fire's out and what we call salvage and overhaul. We destroy evidence, but fire can also create evidence. But we found fingerprints in soot. We found fingerprints on on the gas can.
Hmm,
So have partially melted lighter fluid bottles. We've lifted fingerprints off of those.
wow.
Um, once in a while, blood, you can find some blood, but not very often.
Hmm. I'm surprised you can get fingerprints off a half melted, burned can. That's I mean, I'm glad, but huh,
When we have lifted fingerprints off of like a gun barrel from the
hmm.
oil, it sometimes you don't. But
But it's
no, an arson murder scene's twice as hard to work as a regular murder scene because you got all the burn and
hmm. Have you partnered with police or detectives on scenes like that then?
yes,
You have. Hmm.
yes.
That
Well,
so
most arson investigators today are trained in law enforcement, so they can also help investigate and do that part of it as well.
do you know if there still are arson investigators who are purely on the fire, who come from only a firefighting background?
Yes. Now
There
in
are.
our department we have there's at least three firefighters per shift that are trained in arson investigation that aren't trained in law enforcement, and they just they'll investigate the scene and they'll tell the chief and hey we need you should call the arson guys and have them come. We also have some of our deputies on the sheriff department are also trained in arson investigation.
So it's kind of a joint effort. You have people on both sides, who coming with their expertise, it sounds like.
Yes,
I mean, ideally, right?
ideally, yeah. In some cases, the ATF they have an expert training program that takes 2 years, and they have national response teams throughout the country that are available.
That are kind of non-localized that will come out to do that sort of investigation. Is that what you're saying? Oh, okay. So specialists even within like a group of people who
Yeah,
could do some of that.
yeah. In our area, if we called the ATF, they would send a group of agents out of the Chicago area.
All right. Yeah, I remember in the emails that we exchanged, you said that Detroit, Michigan was one of the highest, most concentrated areas for this kind of crime.
It's the number one city in the nation for arson.
That's
And the last time I checked wasn't a month or so ago. The Detroit City Fire Department runs 24 working fires per 24-hour shift per citywide. They have 95, I think 95 stations throughout the city of Detroit.
oh my gosh.
Them
I
poor guys and gals are working their tails off.
Yeah, they're run ragged. That's when you need to bring in some of those extra agencies just to get the manpower. I would I would imagine to
City
finish
of
that off,
They're running about 15 working structure fires per 24-hour shift citywide.
which is already quite a few. But
Mhm.
yeah, not 24. My
And then
goodness. Um,
We won't even talk about city of Newark. They're crazy. They run thousands of calls a day throughout the city.
wow.
And
And you
just,
worked,
pardon? Sorry,
sorry, you worked, you said in Illinois, right? Central Illinois?
go on.
Okay. So fairly close to Chicago and, not too far from Detroit. So did you
Yeah,
see any of that firsthand?
we're about 120 miles to downtown. I also trained with the city of Chicago Fire Department. Did some search and rescue training with them.
Hmm. Any other details that you see people just misunderstanding about, your work that you did for many years or um when they're trying to tell a story it's like no the outfits wouldn't be that way or no they wouldn't um the
Yeah.
procedure would be different. Is there any last thing that just kind of gets under your skin sometimes?
Well, I opened it was a romance book, and I wouldn't say the author, anybody, I don't remember who the author was, it doesn't matter, but they were at the station and they left to go rescue a cat in their pickup trucks and left the station. It's like, yeah, that's not good.
You wouldn't leave the station to help
Not in the pickup truck. No. If we leave it all, if we're in the station and we leave it all on anything, we'll go in the fire truck.
Oh, okay. Even for a cat. See, I would think, why not just get in your pickup and come right back?
Well, you never know. You may get a call while you're out.
Oh, and then you'd be away from the truck, which you would need.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
But there was days we'd start calls at 7 o'clock in the morning, and we're still running calls the next morning at 7 o'clock.
About how long is a shift, typical um fire rescue shift?
A lot of departments have gone to 3 days on and 3 days off, but most of them are 24 on and 48 off.
Wow. Okay,
The
so a
city of
lot like
Las,
a doctor shift or a
yeah,
nurse, nursing shift. Wow.
the city of Las Vegas, last time I checked, they still run 5 days on, 5 days off.
5 days on. Yeah.
Yeah,
By the 5th day, you would just be like not at your peak, I feel.
yeah, and they're busy. I mean, they're a busy city, but were I don't know if you remember the MGM, you're probably, I don't know if you're probably not old enough to remember the MGM Grand Fire, Hotel Fire. Was in the
Um,
late 80s, mid
no.
late. I'd have to. They had a big fire at the MGM Grand Hotel in Las Vegas.
Mm.
And people died and burned up. And but the city of Las Vegas, they were in the middle of shift change when the call came into dispatch. But
Oh,
so
wow.
they had,
That just throws a wrench into an already horrible
well,
situation.
we
So it
also have,
sounds good.
we also have paid on call firefighters that when they when they need manpower, they'll call the off duty paid call guys that come in and cover. And in our area, they'll call volunteer fire departments. In 1986, we worked one of the biggest fires in our city's history. We had three six-story office buildings all fire at the same time downtown.
Oh my gosh.
Call came in at 11:30 on July the 3rd, and by midnight we had 25 different departments coming and on the scene.
Wow. Wow.
Out
I have a hard time wrapping my mind around how you would even begin to put out a fire of that size.
magnitude,
Yeah.
I was just a firefighter on that. But the command, they divide up each building, and each building has their own command and then they coordinate with the chief officer and the operations officer at the command. But by the time we climbed in on the fire started in the middle building, and we set up on the third building. By the time we climbed up to the third floor and climbed and crawled through all the smoke in the center building, that actually where the fire started, collapsed.
Were you at all afraid that that third building was going to collapse since it had also caught?
Part of it did, part of building on the other side, part of that, when the walls did collapse, it did collapse, and we did lose some. We were on the third floor spraying water out the window, out through the fire doors, out on the fire.
Wow, that sounds extremely stressful to me.
But we were talking about search and rescue. We went into a house fire one afternoon. They had possible entrapment. Well, the first search team, we missed the little girl, but then we went in again and we found her behind the couch. I think is where we found her, but she wasn't breathing. But we took her out to the ambulance, and by the time the ambulance left, she was breathing on her own.
Whew. Yeah, that it would be so rewarding if you did save somebody, but the stakes
Stakes
being
are,
that high, not everyone can do it.
yeah, we won't go into the other parts of that, but yeah, it's
Yeah, well, let's pivot to something a little a little lower stakes. For the people out there who are watching this and who want to include scenes with, what we've been talking about, what are some resources that they can use to give an accurate portrayal of what it's like to actually be a firefighter, investigate arson, and all those other things we've been saying?
there's that, there's some decent videos on that you can watch on YouTube as far as, from helmet cam firefighter view, helmet cam views to training videos. Google only gets you so far. I have a lot of people that come to my group, and well, I was looking on Google, but I couldn't find what the answers I was looking for.
All right. So yeah, I'll definitely put a link down in the description for your Facebook group, which seems like like an excellent place to go to actually ask those specific questions. I
Yes,
know that you are one of the moderators, and I think you mentioned that there were some other people in the profession who were part of the group and kind of offered answers as well. Is that right?
yes. We have several. We have several ladies in for wildland firefighting. Chief Bobby Scopa. She was a wildland firefighter and a chief officer, so she's one of our experts that we can rely on as far as the forest fires. And we have a couple others. Lois Page has some experience, and she's has some recent romance books about wildland firefighting out. And one of my experts was from New Jersey, and he was a fire chief there, and he said he was on the roof and saw one of the planes hit the towers.
Oh my gosh.
That he actually did take a crew, one of his crews to the Twin Towers, and they didn't do any. They actually turned. He went there twice, and they turned him away. But his crew actually did. They opened up all of the cars and trucks and vehicles that were smashed by the debris
Oh,
to
wow.
get their registrations and stuff like that. And some of our authors are retired firefighters.
So it sounds like you have a pretty impressive depth of knowledge um, in that group. So
Yes,
yeah,
we do.
definitely check that out if you're interested in um, doing right by this topic and by the brave people who actually do this day in and day out. Um, well, thank you so much, Ken, for letting me pick your brain, asking you all these questions about, your time as a fire rescue and arson investigator. I find it incredibly interesting, and I hope that this was helpful for the people out there who are planning to write or at least learn more about this topic. So, yeah, thank you so much for spending time with me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was great to be here. Yeah, good luck, everybody. So yeah, come see us at Altered Fire Rescue. So,
All right. Yeah, so make sure to like this video if you like it, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this. Till next week. Bye.